Hello everyone. Today we will discuss class 7th History chapter 1 Medieval India. So let's start the chapter. Our first topic is visiting the past. So before we study about the grandeur of the medieval period, let's quickly visit the past. Our historian divided our history into many periods: ancient history, medieval history, and modern history. So these are the three periods which are divided by the historians. So let's learn about them. In this chapter, we are learning the medieval period. Now, what is the meaning of medieval? The word medieval stands for something that is located in the middle. The period that lies between the ancient period and the modern period of history is known as the middle or medieval period. In India, medieval period ranges from the 8th century to the end of 18th century. Our historian divided medieval history into two periods. One is early medieval period. This is started from 8th century and ended in the 13th century. That is between 700 and 1200 Common Era time. The powerful kingdoms of the Palas, Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, Cholas, and Rajputs ruled during this period. The second period is late medieval period. In this period, the time period is from 13th century to 18th century. That is from 1200 to 1750 Common Era. The rule of the Turks, the Afghans, and the Mughals comes within this period. Let's move to the topic India and its different names. Our country, India, was called by different names during different periods of history, like Jambudweep, Aryavarta, because the main and native citizens were Arya, Bharatvarsha, Sapta Sindhu, as it is a land of 7 rivers, and this name was given by Parsis. India, as the Indi, it is the word which is having French pronunciation, and in French, Indi means Hindu. So, India and Hindustan. This term is used by Babur, the Mughal emperor. So, finally, we came to know that India is having so many names: Jambudweep, Aryavarta, Bharatvarsha, Sub-Sindhu, India, and Hindustan also. Now, let's learn the importance of medieval history. The later medieval period saw the rise of Muslim dynasty. This is one of the most important development of medieval period. This resulted in several cultural influences and exchanges. The Muslim rulers provided political stability for many centuries. As a result, there was increase in trade and commerce. Common people were very happy as they were well looked after. The Mughal Empire saw an all around development and consolidation. Overseas trade flourished, export and import was given impetus as the traders did business with other countries as well. Spread of Islam and Bhakti and Sufi movements were some of the other important highlights of the medieval period. Also, in this period, art and architecture showcased a splendor which is never like before. Mughal architecture introduced domes, minarets, carvings, and use of red sandstones and marbles. Now, the question arises how we know all these things. So, for this, there are many sources of history which tells us everything. Sources of history are divided into two broad groups: archaeological sources, these are non written sources, and literary sources, these are written sources. So, let's learn about all these sources. Archaeological resources. In this category, we are having monuments, coins, arts, etc. So let's learn about them. Monuments are the old buildings, settlements like temples, stupa, caves, etc., which historically important. For example, you can see the picture of Taj Mahal and Red Fort. These are the monuments of medieval history period of India. The next, coins. Coins also tells us about the economy of a kingdom. They help us to identify the names and the ruling period of the kings also. Coins also help us in knowing the extent of empire, and presence of coins in foreign lands indicates trade with them. Here you can see some of the coin examples. Inscriptions. These consist of religious instructions or records of royal proclamation and gifts of temple and villages. We find a number of inscriptions for this period. They are found on the walls of Red Fort, Taj Mahal, Fatehpur Sikri, and the palaces walls of the Rajput kings. Now, the literary sources. These are, as we discussed earlier, handwritten records of the past in the form of books, firmans, and chronicles. So let's discuss each of these. Travelogues. Travelogues are the accounts of the foreigners, those visited different countries. Some of the famous travelers who wrote about India are Ibn Battuta. He traveled from Morocco and he wrote the book Rihla. Al-Baruni and Abdur Razak. These are also the travelers. In this, Al-Baruni, he came from Central Asia and gave a detailed account of Indian philosophy and culture in his book Kitab-e-fi Tahqiq, also called Tarikh al-Hind. Abdur Razak, he visited the kingdom of Vijayanagar. Rather than many other travelers from Europe arrived in India during the medieval period. Marco Polo of Venice, Niccolo Conti of Italy, Duret Barbosa, and Domingo Paes from Portugal, Sir Thomas Ray from England, and many other more. Now, chronicles. Chronicles are written records of events arranged in the order in which they happened. The chronicles would keep records, and most of the time they were the ones whose work gave a detailed account of life and times of the kings. Some of the very important chronicles of medieval period are Raja Tarangini by Kalhana, Tarikh-e-Feroz Shahi by Ziauddin Barani, Tarikh-e-Farishta by Farishta. So these were some of the important chronicles. Now, the next source is autobiographies. Autobiographies are the stories of a person's life written by the person himself or herself. Some important autobiographies of the medieval period are Futuhat-e-Feroz Shahi by Firoz Shah Tughlaq, Babarnama by Babar, Tuzuk-e-Jahangiri by Emperor Jahangir. The next is biographies. Biographies are the stories of a person's life which is written by someone else. Some of the important biographies of medieval period are Prithviraj Raso by Chand Bardai, Humayun-Nama by Gulbadan Begum, Akbarnama by Abul Fazl, and Tarikh-e-Sher Shahi by Abbas Sherwani. So these are some of the sources which tell us about our history. And with this we end up our chapter here, and we'll meet you again